How we doing, folks? In this episode, I'm joined today by former Olympic coach Rob Kober, former Olympians Emerson Smith, Troy Murphy, and former U.S. ski team member and national champion Hunter Bailey. And in this episode, we talk about the Olympics, give it a little bit of a wrap up, and we touch on some of the end of the season thoughts. So, hope you folks enjoy. Thanks.
Record. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time. It's nice and fun. It's been a couple of weeks since we got to talk a little bit of hot mogul action, and we got Emerson. Nice of you to show up for this one. You know, Lars Zemba couldn't be here. There would be a lot of screens going on right now, that's for sure. And Hunter, first time to the show. Thanks for coming on, taking the time to talk about some bump skiing.
Yeah, thank you. Stoked.
Long time listener, first time caller.
Yeah. Long time, yeah, exactly. Well,
I've been cooking my tank top for a couple weeks, so
nice. That's good. Well, we do have a laundry list to go over because we had a lot of picks from the last show, kind of previewing what we thought was going to happen, and it definitely ended up certainly a lot different than I think everybody expected on the men's side. As we touched on beforehand, I was definitely not brave enough to have Walter get the win. I thought he would finish in second, and Mick would kind of be able to get the job done and repeat, but not to be the case. And it shows how difficult it is to repeat, especially on the women's side as well. Definitely a lot of shake up there. But I'm just going to leave it to the floor. I'll go to the right of me. So we'll start with Rob, just overall kind of thoughts and what you saw through the Olympics.
Yeah, well, it was definitely different for me this time. Getting up, setting the alarm to go off at 4 o'clock in the morning and watching it in bed beside my wife in the middle of the night. That was a little bit different than the last few Olympic Games, but it was definitely fun to watch. Boy, when Mick crossed that finish line, and then even, after Walter crossed that finish line, I was pretty sure that it was going to be a successful defense of that Olympic title. So I was a little bit surprised when they gave it to Walter. As you kind of alluded to, maybe can save a discussion on what we all thought of the judging for maybe a little bit later in the podcast here, but not to take anything away from Walter, that's for sure. Like, he was skiing to win, and he had no big mistakes in his run, and he smoked it. So that was it was fun to watch. It was disappointing, and obviously I was going to be rooting for Mick, and but it was fun to watch. I think Akuma was a pretty big surprise too. Again, I'm not sure. There's probably some going to be some pretty interesting thoughts on his run and whether he was where he deserved to be in the final result list. The women too, it was, for sure, like we said, it was a tough course. I think that in theory that should have made the judges' job a little bit easier, but boy, you look at those scores, they didn't use very much of the range, and there was some interesting calls on the women's side too. You did well though, Bobby, picking Anastasia as the dark horse. So
yeah,
good for you on that call. Yeah, it was as always. I'm sure it was a different Olympics for those skiers to experience than the past several. But they put on a good show, and a lot of kids stepped up. A lot of kids were a little bit nervous, I think, and the one guy too, like I think the two young guys in that super final, they both crushed it. I thought Nick Page and Cooper, they both killed it. It's really good to see some new blood, for sure, probably under the most pressure that those guys have ever felt in their Absolutely. Relatively short careers. They both crushed it in the super final, so that was pretty good on the men's side. Yeah, the women's side too. The women, it was nice to see. It was nice to see Jalen. We talked about that on that last podcast, how that decision to kind of skip those World Cups, how that would work out. And I wasn't sure. She certainly, there's no doubt about her ability, but I'm I'm more of a believer in, when things are going well and you're a contender, to kind of keep your foot on the gas going into a big event like that. But she certainly proved that there's more than one right way to approach these things. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that was definitely one of the things. We talked a lot about that pre-Olympic qualification and peaking for that one event and how that all worked out. And we talked about it a little bit before the show, but just, Brian Zembo is not here. I mean, he called Jalen as his dark horse. He's like, she skis really well there. She's had 3 wins and I think a second kind of going in. And I think all that noise absolutely played a role without a question. I'm sure all the white noise going around and everything else, I'm sure that put a big chip on her shoulder. And it was really nice to see Jalen, ski nice and aggressive. And I think that was kind of one of the takeaways for me, is just the judges really seemed to favor that aggressiveness. I think from watching Mick and his run, I mean, it was a nice like stock run, but it was like, okay, that it seemed like he left the door just a little bit open. When I saw that time come across, like 25.10 or 1:30, I was like, huh. All right. He seemed to, after he got his score and he beat Akuma, at least to me, it seemed like he celebrated like it was done deal. He kind of had it. And I think it at least seemed, he was very gracious in defeat. But I think he was a little surprised, as a lot of people were. Troy, some of your thoughts on the Olympics?
Yeah, thanks. Similar to Rob, it was interesting dynamic for watching. I think it set me back in the work week because I was getting up at whatever time it was to watch, and then we'd go back for like the qualifying days. We'd wake up and watch that first run, and then like go back to sleep, and then watch the next run and go back to sleep. And end of the work day, I was like, oh god, I'm hurting on myself in those early mornings. And then we drove up to Tahoe on Saturday morning, and Shelby, my wife, I made her drive at like 3 a.m. and I just sat there and watched live as the games went on. So definitely a different scenario than the last time, but yeah, it's just super exciting. It kind of like brings back all the memories, and you kind of like, you're not standing in the gate, but you almost get like a little bit of those jitters just watching some of the people that you've been skiing against or rooting for. So it was cool to have it was just cool to watch a games where you're maybe not as stressed out about it, but you have some horse in the race. So that was really fun. I think we'll probably get into more of a judging conversation later, but I think, Rob brings up some really good points in some of those scores, especially on the super final day there with, potentially Akuma. And I kind of thought Henri is how you pronounce it, correct? I thought Henri actually had a pretty good run too, and maybe could have been standing on the box somewhere. I feel like the judging was interesting to like in watching other sports too. Like it wasn't just moguls by any means. Like there was some pretty big controversy in like men's snowboarding. Pipe and in slope, I think. And just across the board, it seems like maybe a little bit more high profile, judging in question. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know if anything comes to that. Maybe, people can, if we can figure out a way to tighten it up. I guess with judging, you never really can. But other takeaways, I'm trying to think. I don't know. It just looked, you wish you were there. It looked fun. They actually got some snow in China, which is, I think, a rarity. And it was a good time to watch. I'm excited to get into more like kind of the nitty gritty discussions here. I think my picks were wildly off as we discussed, but that's how it goes.
Women's side, you had Perrine, Henri, and Kai, and OG was your dark horse, and then on the men's it was Mick, Nick, Akuma, and then dark horse there you had Cole or Dylan for you there. So I guess all
right, I had some close calls.
You had some close calls, definitely. E-Dog, what were your thoughts?
I thought it was a great event to watch. The big thing for me is I think it's really hard to analyze it with the angle they give us on the live feed.
Definitely.
But from watching from that angle, I thought Walter hands down won it. I didn't have picks before. That wouldn't have been it if I did. I thought it was a throwdown between Mick and Akuma. I thought maybe Cavett or Matt Graham could have, given them a run, but I thought it was basically those two dudes competing for gold, and Walter kind of came in and snatched it right up, which I thought was cool to see. Like, I thought it was great for mogul skiing. There's a new gold medalist, and he kind of brought back that like fast charging, exciting run, which is good to see.
Absolutely.
The women's side, crazy to see a 360 on the box again. She did have a mute grab in it, which is cool. But yeah, I'm kind of same page. I thought Henri maybe could have stood on a box, but I think 1, 2 they got right there, and yeah, 3 could have been 2. So I thought it was a great event to watch. Super exciting, kind of edge of the seat, I thought, at the end there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it was awesome to see Walter. I mean, he stepped up and like took it, on the men's side. And then Jakara, she was skiing so consistent, and that run, I mean, that cork mute sweet, she's really got that bottom air. And I think compared to some of the runs earlier in the year, she actually got a little bit more extension and kind of lift on that bottom air, where earlier in the season, she was kind of just pushing down the hill, not quite getting that same amplitude. So that was, it was super, super exciting. Hunter, your thoughts on the Olympics?
Well, Edoc and I watched it together. We were in St. Combs, so we woke up early with the whole team and watched it, which was super fun. And they were super hyped on it, I feel like, which was super cool to see on both men's and women's sides. I guess the thing that I was most surprised by was that Livy didn't throw the 10. I was expecting that. And then none of the dudes really, I thought maybe a 14 would go down, or a cork 7 or a cork 10 grab. I don't know. I feel like everybody kind of skied their kind of super stock or maybe even below stock runs, except for Walter. So I was kind of, I thought, I agree with E-Dog. I kind of thought he just skied a lot more badass than everybody else, which is cool. I think that's one way to beat everybody, and he kind of did it. So I thought it was sick. One thing that I thought was interesting, when there was all the mistakes going on in half pipe, they were blaming it on they didn't have replay. And I was thinking maybe, I don't know, I feel like it maybe makes a case for replay in moguls, or at least side angle of the jump for the judges or something. If the other sports have it, it seems like it should at least be talked about for mogul skiing, or maybe for finals or something, which I don't know, seemed like something that we could discuss.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think it's one of those things that as Emerson kind of touched on, I mean, it's hard to get a really good idea of the mistakes and the overall impression of the run. I mean, clearly from the side view, you can see Walter's stepping on it and he's going super, super fast, super aggressive, but that made it, and that's kind of always made it difficult. I mean, I think really since 2002, they've been doing that broadcast with the wire coming down the line. I mean, I know when CBS did the last broadcast, at least of the 98 Olympics, you had a bird's eye view, the same view that the judges really get. So you can really get a good view of the run and kind of the same thing that the judges see. So that's one of those things where, I mean, to me, and I think to most people, Akuma's mistakes seem pretty significant from that side angle. And that was certainly the biggest surprise for me, is how he ended up on the box. I mean, I felt really bad for either Ben or Nick, because I thought both of those guys really skied great in that super final, and either one of those guys really could have been on there. And that to me was super, super shocking. I mean, I thought with those mistakes, I mean, Akuma might have even been 6th, because it wasn't like Cooper had a terrible run. I mean, he was super dynamic and aggressive. I mean, maybe he just didn't quite have that same DD. I mean, I think he's kind of maxed out that run to what he's going to be able to work his way up. But that was, I mean, it's similar to what you talked about as well, Hunter, the degree of difficulty. I mean, it's definitely taken a little bit of that step back where, 2014, everyone's doing double full 10, and that's kind of the main run to be able to get it done. And that was one of the interesting things that I thought for Mick, where, I mean, certainly he left some meat on the bone, but if he wanted to ski maybe a 75-80% run, because that's what it looked like to me, it was kind of more of that walk in the park, that maybe why not throw the double full? I mean, you got more DD than anybody else in the world. So I don't know, Rob, maybe you can speak to that and
Yeah, I haven't spoken to Mick. traded a few messages after the games, but I haven't actually spoken to him, and I don't want to put him in an awkward position to answer those kind of questions straight up, but I'm dying to know too. And for sure, like, maybe you never know with those situations if he was nursing some kind of injury, or, if there's something that he had to try to protect. I'm pretty sure that Akuma has been all year. I haven't been, nosy about the details, but he was getting treatments at the bottom of the Mogul course, on a regular basis. Pretty much every training session, the Japanese team medical staff was all over him. So he had stuff going on. I don't know what for sure, but for sure that was affecting his performance, and maybe Mick did too. And the one thing I'm sure you could kind of get from the TV coverage still was the difficulty of the course. And I don't know, without being there, it's hard to know precisely just what it was like compared to the 6 weeks I spent there last February and March, but it's a beast of a course, and it's 100%. Like, they did get a little bit of natural snow, which kind of was nice for the television coverage, but that course is like 100% rock hard, super dense man-made snow. And it is, it's an honest, I think they only called it 28 degrees, but when I was there with my inclinometer shooting it from the top to the bottom air, I got a pretty honest, pretty steady, non-deviating 29 degrees. And you couldn't see the finish line from the start because the bottom air landing is too steep. So they called it 28 degrees, but when I was there last year, it was more like 29 and a half degrees. So it's a very, very tough course. And of course, the team I was coaching last year, none of those kids were really at a level yet to be, even thinking about doing back full on the top air. So for sure that probably played a role. At the same time, I know Mick, and I know what he's capable of. And if those guys didn't have a spreadsheet going, kind of estimating what the scores were going to be and the times that were going to be necessary to make sure, to really make sure we're going to get the job done, then they weren't doing their job. And for sure, if Walter can ski in 23 and a half seconds, I think, probably even if we said the judging was okay, the technical scores were okay, I think if Mick would have skied it in 24 seconds, that would have been fast, a second faster, and it would have been enough for the win. So,
yep.
So I don't know all the answers, but it's easy to judge from the outside. But for sure, you got to think that was within his capabilities, and hopefully, he had good information going into that event and was making, solid decisions based on accurate information. But yeah, it would be interesting to know. All those little details.
Yeah, no, certainly. I mean, it's definitely one of those things that hindsight is 2020. You get a very clear view of, what you could have done differently, what you should have done differently. And that's, I think, what makes our sport great, and also makes it so infuriating at times, because you have about 24 seconds to figure it out. And then especially when it comes to the Olympics, it's once every 4 years. So you get a long time to sit back and kind of think on what you could have done differently, whether what the judges were thinking, or all those different things play into it. So it definitely makes it an interesting aspect. But I guess let's get into a little bit of that judging. Troy, your thoughts on some of what you saw?
Yeah, from a judging, well, if I can walk it back for a second, just kind of go on what Rob and a couple of the guys have said here. I kind of agreed with Hunter and Emerson that I felt like Mick kind of left the door a little bit open, and left some meat on the bone. And I definitely agree that Walter was the guy who came in and snatched it up. I think he kind of like skied to the very high end of his ability level and kind of maxed out his degree of difficulty on the jumps, and then like really focused on doing what he can do well. He did that to the max of his ability, which was ski as fast as possible. And I thought Mick, but not just Mick, like a lot of those guys, it almost seems like we're going backwards in a little bit on some of these jumps. Like I don't know, I could be mistaken, but I don't know if there was a single double full in the whole games. And a lot of those guys, Ben Cavet has been doing that since a really long time. Like since I was on World Cup, we were all doing double full to 10, like when I first got on there. And and that was like a long time ago. So it's 2014, and I think even before that. So it's just interesting to see like Ben and Mick, and even like Nick Page is a guy who's very capable of doing double fold. Like Cork 10 obviously can do double fold to 14. Akuma can do double fold. Like there's so many guys out there who have a lot more in the tank, and it didn't come out there. And it could be like we were not there. We didn't see how difficult the course was. Top air could have been pretty gnarly, but I don't know. I remember standing in Washiro on a super foggy day, and Alex Bilodeau ripped a double full in training on that top jump there. And so if that can be done, then you kind of got to wonder, probably can do that trick anywhere. So that was just one observation. Like I would like see a little bit more pushing it on the degree of difficulty and kind of like getting the sport moving back in that direction, just to keep it exciting. It kind of seems like everyone's focused on having a really clean run, and I get it, you got to do what's going to score well, but it just seems from the excitement of the sport level, it was cool to see Walter pushing on speed, and I would like to see more guys pushing it on the jumps. But when we get back to the judging discussion, I think I'm in the camp that I think Akuma should have been in 6. Like I thought Cooper's run was great. I thought Nick and Ben both skied really well. I think if I was gonna judge it in hindsight, I would have had Walter, Mick, Ben, and then Nick, Cooper, and Akuma. And I think a lot of folks that I've been around just were pretty amazed with Akuma's score there. But again, like we didn't see it from the bottom, so maybe there's a chance that run looked a little bit different from that bottom angle. Who knows? And then, on the judges' side, on the women's side, like I said, I think they got 1 and 2 right. Like I think maybe E-Dog had said with Jakara laying down that really nice run and pushing the jumps for sure, clean skiing, fast time. Like I think it was hard to argue with that. Was super psyched to see Jalen lay it down like she did, like skiing super fast and aggressive, and it just seemed like back to her old self. So that was great to see. And then I kind of thought that Henri should have been 3rd, but I think that was a bit of a closer race. So those are my takes on the judging aspect.
E-Dog?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same page there. The one about Akuma in 3rd that gets me is like, I remember watching 2017, the test event in Pyeongchang from the side view, and seeing Mick out of the top air, and it looked like he made a monster mistake. It was like, oh, he just blew it, right? And then he ended up winning. Like 2 weeks later, somebody put it up on YouTube. You see the bottom angle, and it was like not even a little step out. It was like he just came over to bump. So it's that kind of makes me wonder about Akuma's mistake out of top air. If it just that close-up side angle made it look like a huge deal, and you watch it from the bottom, and it was just some normal Akuma crazy shit.
Right.
So I don't really know. I thought Ben skied great. Like his super finals run was, he wanted a medal. He gave it. Nick skied unreal, like all day. He came out and just did his job, laid runs down. So I really think either of those two guys could have gotten a bronze. And then Coop skied sick, kind of same as they were saying. Like his run, it seems like he maxed out just with DD he has and stuff. Like he was skiing that run as good as he can. And then women's side, same thing. Like, Jalen came out and played her strengths like none other. She was just balls to the walls all day, and it paid off. And then, Jakara, just kind of her classic stock run. Like, I think she plays the judging really well. Like, she's got great absorptions. Her posture is unreal, and she looks like a real deal pro out there. So 3rd could have been Henri, could have been, Anastasia. I don't know.
What about Perrine?
I don't, I think she underperformed, It seems like for 3-4 years now, we've just seen her dominate. And this year, something with judges, they didn't like it as much. And I don't know if it was on her end or if it's like a classic Brick Cox, she comes out one season, basically wins everything, gets the overall. And then the next year, like, in my eyes, I didn't see anything change on her end, but then all of a sudden she's not even a contender. So I don't know.
Yeah, that
I
has
thought
been
on
super
Perrine,
interesting to see.
I thought there was one of those qualification runs where Perrine skied down. And I was like, oh, that's it. She's got it in the bag. And same with Mick. Like one of those earlier runs, I was like, there's no way that anyone's beating those two. But then in that super final run, it seemed like it shifted a little bit.
Yeah.
Hunter, your thoughts?
He's taking
Sorry, I was trying to write things down so I don't forget everything.
You're good.
Well, I guess kind of just to play devil's advocate on the Akuma thing is, I guess I just personally like Akuma's skiing so much more than really everybody's, but especially Ben's. That I don't know. I kind of think that I at least complain about that they emphasize mistakes too much sometimes, and they forget about like sometimes people just ski a better run, even if they make a mistake. Like it's still better than somebody else who like skied a lamer run but didn't make any mistakes, you know?
Yeah.
So I kind
absolutely
of feel that like Akuma's shit is so rad. Like even if he made a little mistake, like I don't really care. And then also like I sometimes think that Ben's 1080s look they don't present super well from the bottom. So I think like maybe if you had a front angle of Ben's run, if we had a front angle of Ben's run, it would be, I think we would maybe like it less or like Akuma's more. So back to the angles. And then another thing on Perrine's is I think that maybe the judges have realized that backflip Japan grab is like not a great, like just kind of not a great trick. I don't know. Like I don't want to too close to home for you maybe, Bobby, but like I like that trick very much. And I think that maybe they've realized that like as far as back grabs go, that's like the lamest trick ever and it's super easy. So maybe they kind of are hating on that now. And like Jakara's run, like she did the huge back mute and it was so sick. So maybe like, I don't know. I kind of thought maybe that was where they didn't like Perrine. But then again, there is a 360 ahead of her. So I don't really know.
The Anastasia there, that heli mute. That's the interesting thing. And that really, I'm curious what will happen from these results, like moving forward, the judges that see like, because usually as you see like each year, there's kind of a shift and obviously Walter got the gold, but how much will that change like the judge's mind on the aggression? Like, okay, because there are years it seems like when you can make some mistakes and they kind of avoid looking at some of those, but it certainly seems nowadays, at least until really this event, that you know you would get hammered on your exits, you would get the judges really look for that. And also like on the jumping, I think part of the reason why everyone stopped doing double full is because they came in with that pie chart, and unless you're Troy Murphy and you can get that head right over the top, if it's a little here and I think that would happen with Mick or with Ben, and their head would not be right over the top and they would get hit pretty hard on that. And so I don't know if creating that pie chart kind of sent some of the sport back a little bit. I mean, I know for the judges that don't really have a great idea that they need something to be able to tell on the double full or on a cork, if it's a cork 7 or if it's a D spin. And that was kind of one of the challenges, not talking about the Olympics, but at least on the NORAM tour. I mean, a lot of the girls, especially in Apex, just got absolutely hammered and on some D spins and stuff like that, hey, maybe on the pie chart, it was a little bit D spinny. And I mean, that's what goes into the judging. I mean, I guess you have sub judges that use it as a key and some absolutely like live by the pie chart. Well, technically I can't score this jump higher than a 4 because the pie chart says I can't score it higher than a 4. So, I mean, that always makes for some interesting aspects in the judging. That's for sure.
I thought that they eradicated that like shortly after, like a year or so after. Am I mistaken? It's still around.
Oh, the chart lives,
still
my man.
in there. It's still in there. Yeah.
By the pie chart, man.
I don't know. Mick can do this double full straight over the top, no question.
I don't know if they're straight over the
Got
top.
enough room.
He's got enough room.
He's got, if he can go big enough. You had those pretty good, Troy. I got to give it to you. That Valsincom World Cup, whatever year that was, when you kind of not out of nowhere, but I think that was probably your first really top World Cup result. That was fairly impressive.
Oh, thank you.
Your double fulls were definitely something to model on.
I appreciate
Yeah,
that. I mean, it means a lot coming from you, Rob, for sure.
There's so much more to it than just the access, though, and that bothers me a lot, especially when some of these other, it seems like in a lot of cases the grab forgives access on the cork side. And nothing against Jimmy Salonen, but his cork 7 tail grab is more inverted. His access is better for back full than most of the guys that do back full, and he got the highest raw scores at the Ruka World Cup in the season opener. I think he was the only guy that got 9s for raw scores, and he is completely upside down on that cork 7 tail. So I personally think that in most cases, it's just a matter of, there are a lot of good judges in our sport. There really are. They're mostly good people for, sucking up all the abuse that, that we, especially me, dish on these guys. But I think there's just, there's a lot of judges that don't really know, and they kind of see a grab thrown in there, and some of them will hit it super hard just because they don't know what a good one should look like, and some of them will overscore it just because it looks cool to them. And if you pin that landing and ski away clean, lots of times you'll see that. So for me, there's just a ton of variability in the sport, in the judging, and you guys could probably get me really riled up on this topic pretty easily. But going into Korea and going into Sochi, the head judges for those Olympic Games, those guys quite obviously cared about getting it right, and they put a lot of extra time. There's a lot more transparency. There's a lot better communication amongst the teams and between the teams and the judges going into those events. And the scores were just more predictable. And I wasn't there at the games this year, but what really struck me, and I think it's partly because of COVID, just the judges are really inaccessible these days. And there's a lot less communication. There's a lot less transparency. And I think that, maybe some of the people in key positions in the judging world are not necessarily our best people, and not necessarily our best leaders when it comes to the world of judging. And I really think, we all know, it's a judge sport, it's part of the game, but we use that as an excuse way too much in bump skiing. And the kids deserve better. All of you guys as athletes, you guys deserve better. You think about the time, energy, and money that we put into the sport, and versus the time, energy, and money that are put into the people that determine our success or failure. And those things do not add up. And a little bit of a judging scandal in mogul skiing wouldn't be the worst thing for our sport. Just really make people kind of examine what's going on and how to make it better moving forward. I think that would be a good thing for our sport.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it certainly needs to evolve. And I know they've changed some of the scoring systems around and everything else. But I mean, as we've all touched on, the fact that you have a 360 still on the box when you have somebody doing a cork mute, and you have multiple girls doing cork grabs and things of that nature. And that's where it really goes back to, are you going to be rewarded for going out and doing that DD? Because if you're not, then just do a spread if that's all you need to do to, and you have the turn quality, or just do that 360. So it's really frustrating. And I think it makes it difficult as a coach to try to talk to athletes and everything else about pushing the DD, pushing that, moving into the next one. Especially with, when you're talking with girls trying to progress there, they're like, well, you just had a girl do it with a heli mute. Why do I need to do a cork 7?
Yeah. And we know, like we spoke about last time, like Anastasia, she was doing some pretty impressive cork 7s on the bottom air back in INTA in November. Like, she is capable of doing that. So yeah, they obviously saw it as not worth the risk and dialed it back and didn't really pursue that cork 7 for her going into the season, going into the Olympic Games. But she's got it in her bag, I'm sure. She's young. She stays healthy. We'll see that from her in the future, assuming that the reward will be worth the risk.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it paid off for her in that end. I mean, she did get on the box, and so it definitely worked out for that. But I don't know. I mean, I think potentially doing the replay with the camera, getting that side angle so you can really get in and see that takeoff. I mean, if that's going to help progress, I mean, I think anything will really help, because it's really difficult for these judges. At least it seems that way. And I think in using that pie chart, they're trying to create consistency, but when some people use it and some people don't, it's really difficult. I mean, as you talk with Yemi Salonen, getting 9s on a cork 7 tail grab, that's a full tail grab, full with the cross and a tail grab in it. So, I mean, that's really like, well, how do you build that consistency? Because some people just live by it, and some people are like, oh yeah, like it should be pretty easy to see the axis as a judge. You should be able to. I mean, I don't know if they need to come out and just do a panel at the water ramps and have some of them just show up in Canada or everywhere and just be like, okay, watch the head position. Okay, there we are. There it is. I mean, I don't know. Thoughts, guys?
I think the thing like about the pie chart, and I always feel like in general, like we always build these little rules to try to like band-aid an issue, and it like really has to come back to like the fundamentals of like judging based on like the mechanics of the trick. Like you can always see like if somebody comes off a jump and like goes early, like you can see that. It might be a split second, but anybody who's been around the sport for a second knows like that guy went early, or that guy there's just like, I think when you put like this geometric pie chart thing on something, like you're not judging the trick for what it is, you're just looking for just some kind of really easy metric to put on it, rather than like judging it based on like the fundamental mechanics of the trick. And the same goes for the turn, you know what I mean? Like if we're just judging looking by like based on how many breaks the person had or how close the legs were together the whole time, you're still missing a huge fundamental piece of the turn, which is like the shape of the turn, and like is the tip dropping and contacting the mogul first, like all those types of things that we all know. I think they get oversimplified when you put these like very simple rules and kind of parameters around it, and you kind of lose a little bit of the art and a little bit of the the things that we spent like the whole summer working on. Really all you have to do is just keep your legs straight and don't flip too much, and like you'd be good.
Hunter?
Yeah, I don't feel like I have too much to add to that. I feel like they kind of said it all. Like the pie chart thing is just so frustrating as an athlete. Like if you can do a good cork 7 and go a little bit more inverted, and it doesn't mean it's worse than the person who does like a flatter. You know what I mean? Like it's just, I think like maybe the judges aren't watching enough of the sport, or they're not. I'm sure most of them are great, but maybe, I don't know. I don't know. It is super frustrating though. I don't really have much to add to this.
E-Dog, anything to add?
I don't like the pie chart. I don't know. I think, like Hunter had said earlier, it was a surprise to see Libby not do a 10 there, right? But in my eyes, like Libby's got one of the most mechanical, technical 10s in the game. Like that thing, you watch her takeoff and stuff, and you're like, damn, that is proper. But then she goes to Tremblant and does it and gets like a 7.2, 7.4, and then there is a guy like Yemi throwing it on that top air, just hucking and praying up there, and he's putting up 8.2, 8.3, and you're like, well, what are we doing? So where's the risk reward for someone like that doing that big of a trick if she can do a technical 7 and put up a higher score? Which is, I think that's where it's a little flawed, especially on the female side with the DD, is like there's some people that their takeoffs aren't that technical, they'll do a cork or whatever, get a score, and then someone like Livy who has just a sick 10, they're like, let's give that a little above average, that was good. Which is like, it's an excellent trick every time, like top tier. So that's kind of, yeah.
Agreed.
You guys were maybe on the NORAM tour. Maybe it's a little better there. I was around for that Apex NORAM, but I was, I was trying to minimize my time, rushing off to drive back down home as quick as I could after training on those days. But I don't know, maybe it was better, but in my observation, the there needs to be way more practice. There needs to be way more communication between the sport, the people who are actually doing the sport, and the judges. And these kind of conversations, like what we're having right now, it should be, part of the whole procedure during an event, during official training, and briefings and debriefings of the competitions. And at up to 2018, when I was around, that process was a little bit hit or miss. But going into the Olympic Games, like I said, it was really good, I thought. And a lot of the rest of the time, it seems like the judges, they don't want to show that they're maybe favoring one team or one coach, and they think maybe it's unethical to have those kind of conversations. But we need to have those conversations with the judges, and I think there's room for a difference of opinion. We don't all have to think the exact same things on every point of technique, but I think it's a really important missing piece of the puzzle right now. We need to have, the judges can't be off in their own silo, just only seeing the sport through the windows of the judges stand. There needs to be that kind of ongoing interaction amongst us, guys like us too, the coaches and the judges. And I think it's a huge missing piece. And if it's done on a regular basis, if we had good communication, it's preemptively, not so it's just a bitch session after every event, but going into events. So we're talking about things, maybe showing some video, discussing runs. Everyone can kind of have their 2 cents. It's going to be better. And I think we've seen that when that has been done, the results, it's still not perfect, but it's a lot more predictable, reliable. And I think everyone feels better about it. I know it was always a big shocker to me, the first event after the games, when you get a totally new judging panel, like last time around going to Tazawako, and I can't remember the specifics, but I remember thinking, oh my God, this is a different judging panel. These results do not make sense to me at all. And but you have that, if you have that ongoing practice and communication, I think that you do see an improvement in the quality of judging in our sport.
And I think a lot of that, as you touched on, rather than having a bitching session, I mean, I think it makes sense to maybe start that conversation in the summer, while people are off. I know a lot of the judges have other jobs, but I mean, I feel like that's one of those things like, hey, this is July, and these are just some of the results from last year, and trying to get ahead and get an idea so you can kind of get on the same page of what are you really looking for? What is supposed to be the top tier end? And I mean, I definitely agree with you that it can be difficult from a judge's perspective on, trying to ride that line of favoritism or whatever else. And that's definitely can be a slippery slope, but there needs to be certainly a solution where that communication happens, because the communication is small, to say the least.
I don't know if any of you guys have had the opportunity. I just shared the files with you, Bobby, but to have a look at the video from the bottom, if you're able to get access to the U.S. team's video that they would have taken of the event, or I don't know for sure. I assume it's probably from the Canadian team, the video that I got, but I did have the chance to see the men's super final.
Okay, interesting.
From the bottom perspective. So you can maybe pass that along to the other boys here on the call, and
yeah, we'll do.
You guys can kind of have a look at that and see what you think after that. I again, for sure, I'm not saying that Walter doesn't deserve it. These things are fluid situations, and when you're in the moment, he's going to be, making decisions on strategy based on how he's being rewarded or not. And I definitely am not saying that he's not a worthy Olympic champion, but at the same time, when I judge it strictly off the video, I had Mick first, Nick Page second, Ben third, Cooper fourth, Walter fifth, and Akuma sixth. That's how I scored it, according to the judging criteria and the video that I watched. If you look at those scores, like if you take the scores and extrapolate them back to the 5-point system for turns versus the current 20-point system, virtually all the boys would have been scored either a 4-2 or 4-3, either 4-1, 4-2 or 4-2, 4-3. So everyone's kind of within range of 2/10. And that never would have happened, good judging or bad judging, that never would have happened under the old 5-point judging system here. And so, there is definitely some weird stuff there. But if you guys have a chance, take a look at that video and then let us know what you think.
Yeah, that's interesting. Excited to see that.
I'm excited. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, no, thank you for passing that along, for sure. It's definitely one of those things where the side angle gives quite the perspective, that's for sure. So I'm curious to give it a look. And I mean, the one thing that you can definitely agree on is the fact that the judges can't take the speed points away. That's the one thing. Sure. They can take anything else away from you, but they can never take those speed points. Those are yours and yours forever.
This is true.
Yeah. So, I mean, on the women's side, just talking into Jakara a little bit, I mean, it was really exciting to see her kind of come through. And I think as kind of Emerson and a few other have kind of touched on just how great it is for the sport. I mean, having another Australian get a gold, and she skied so consistently. And that was kind of the thing going in with the sharp bumps in the mean course there. And she's really hit that cork mute like all season. That thing's been really stock. And that mute, like I said, a few times it seemed like she didn't quite get the hips through, kind of came down the hill more than getting quite the same amplitude. I mean, she really hit it nicely in China. And so that was really exciting to watch on the women's side. And I think just looking at it overall for the sport of mogul skiing, I mean, I think it's fantastic. You have Walter get the gold, Sweden. I mean, I think that we will be spending plenty of time in Sweden in the fall and in Idre, especially all that dirt work and all the investment that they're doing. But I mean, I think personally, if Mick was potentially on the fence about like maybe being done if he got another gold or not, like for me, it's like, okay, I think Mick's now going another 4 years. I think he wants that redemption, and he'll take the time, and he's still young and he's still clearly at the top of his powers. So for me, I think it's exciting on that end that I think it keeps Mick in the sport for another 4 years. I could be wrong, but that's kind of how I lean after that kind of disappointment. And as I touched on the last show, I mean, I know he looks at the history and he wants every single one of those records or to be tied with it. So, and I think also just speaking back to the different countries, I mean, you think, you got Australia on the box, you got the US, you got Russia, you have also Japan, you have Sweden, you have Canada. I mean, that's a really, really nice for the sport. And I think it keeps the growth, and it keeps a lot of countries interested for the long haul, especially as hopefully duels gets into the Olympics. And I actually heard that at Junior World Championships, they're planning on doing mixed team duels. So I don't know how I haven't seen how that goes, but that sounds really cool as well.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. I hope it actually happens.
I think they tried that at Perisher, right? Like
they did,
last time that people were able to go to Perisher for summer training. I never really heard too much about how that went over, but it's interesting. It's something, anyways.
Yeah, no, definitely going to be interesting to see. So I guess, Junior World Championships will kind of have that. And then we have one more Duels World Cup this weekend. Val Malenko will be popping off, and then World Cup finals in Mezhev. And it'll kind of be nice. World Cup finals is actually singles and duels. It's not, so you get kind of best of both worlds as they try to make that push for the Olympics with duels. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of lays out. I got some of the points in there, and it's going to be a pretty interesting finish. There's still a lot on the line at World Cup finals, especially for a few people that are definitely in play.
I feel like we're looking at Val Malenko dual, like the royalty here with Hunter and Emerson. I feel like these guys must have dual citizenship in Italy after how many times they've been there.
I've never been.
Oh,
I've been
Hunter's the king there.
I went 3 times. I think the best result I came away with was a 6th place. So
not bad.
He's got it on lock.
Yeah, locked down, dude. I'm actually super stoked to see people do on that course. It's definitely like one of the most challenging courses I've ever skied, and it has like a super steep top air and then a humongous bottom air. So I feel like it's going to be a super fun event to watch.
Hunter, is that the one where you did the front flip out of the duels gate?
That is the one where I front flipped out of the duels gate.
And then still beat Casey.
No, I lost by 1 point, but it was my best run ever on that course.
But you beat him down though, right?
I
You
did
smoked
beat him down, yeah. Yep. Fun play. I mean, it's a cool spot too. It'll be a super interesting World Cup.
How much does that bottom air fall away? Because I mean, from
Dude,
watching
it's
on the videos, it seems like it's like kind of a Calgary back in the day before they kind of did that dirt
maybe
work.
more. I think
Even more.
Bro, I was front siding the third Mogul. You can go to the moon on that thing. It's ridiculous.
Yes. I was there once. They had World Cup finals there in 2009 or 2008, I think. And I believe Dave Babick won that event. And Vincent Marquis was second. And most of that week, it was beautiful. The course skied pretty easy, but of course, all the training was from about 11 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So beautiful spring-like conditions. And then contest day, of course, for live TV, it was at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it was hard as rock. And it was a completely different course than what anybody had skied all week. And it was, I don't recall if there were injuries, but it would have been very lucky if they got through that event without any serious ones. It was a challenge. It's a challenge to say the least, but I have great memories of that place too. The one time I went, it was a beautiful, beautiful spot.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to see for on the dual side. So you got Mick in the lead on the men's side, 200. He's got 200 points. Akuma is in second with 140. So not only do you have Val Malenko, then you have World Cup finals. So that's pretty tight. And then you have falls off after that. You got Walter with 98 in third. So, and then on the women's side, Jakara's in the lead with 160. Perrine's in second with 116. And then Anastasia is in third with 109. Kai Owens in fourth with 100. And then Rino Yanamoto in fifth with 95 for the duels. So that'll be interesting to see. And duels is such a wild card on that course. Hopefully you don't have too many people front-siding the third mogul.
Are we, I don't know, maybe you guys know, but are we allowing the Russians to participate in the end of are they banned in freestyle, or are they allowed to compete here?
Good question. I don't know. I haven't heard anything.
I believe FIS made an announcement that across like all FIS that Russia was not skiing. I thought that I saw that on social media or something like that FIS had kind of made that statement. So I believe it was for all
for all disciplines.
Yeah, all disciplines. Mm-hmm.
Okay, crazy days.
Yeah. Well, that was, speaking of just of Russia, not only Anastasia, but I think it was Nikita Andreev. There was that one Russian who won Junior World Championships last year, who was just going absolutely huge on that top air, that full. He was taking that thing to the moon and was skiing super, super fast.
Yeah, I don't know if it was him, but there was maybe the other Russian boy did double full. When Troy said that, I think there was one of the Russian kids did double full in the top air.
That's right. I remember that.
It's a good try, but kind of blew it.
When I was there, the Russians swept the box too. They've skied well on that course in the past.
Interesting.
Where does Brad sit in that duels overall?
Brad is sitting in fifth right now with he's got 72 points. So
how about Jalen? I feel like Jalen might go on a warpath here after that. She's got the games out of her belt with some success. I feel like she's just about to go on a tear.
I just have the top 5 up because those were kind of the only ones in contention with 2 World Cups ago, and she is not in the top 5. So yeah, and Brad's sitting in fifth with 72. Ludwig is in fourth with 92. And yeah, I mean, on the men's side, at least for singles, I mean, there's 1 World Cup left. It's really down between Mick and Akuma. Mick's got 572. Akuma's got 560. And then Walter sitting in third with 345. And then on the women's side for singles is pretty tight between the top 3. You have Henri with 549, Perrine with 510, and then Jakara sitting in third with 505.
Tight.
very tight. Be interesting to see how that course kind of comes together in Megève this year, at least on the single side. That's kind of the last event, Val-Malenko, and then Megève for duels. So you get a couple more there. It'll be interesting to see how that's all going to play out. Yeah, looking at it.
It's been a while since there's been a tight race coming right down to the finish here. I can't remember the last time it was that tight.
Yeah, Kuma's, I mean, it's kind of been back and forth, and it's going to be interesting to see. I'm going to pull it up and see where Jalen is sitting on the duel. So just bear with me for a second here. Let's see. Jalen and the duels. She is 7th. So she's 7th with 72 points.
Where does Tess sit on that duels list?
She is sitting in 6th with 77 points.
That's going to be an interesting one to watch too. She comes back strong for sure.
Yeah, that'll definitely be interesting to see how she responds, because I think she went over there, right? Sat in a hotel room. So
I believe so.
Yeah, that'll definitely be interesting to see all those dynamics as they kind of come around to the end of the year. Get ready to see what's going to happen next year. What do you guys think for what are some of the picks for World Cup finals? What do you guys think will happen there?
Like the overall, or what do you mean?
I think, yeah, let's go overall. You think Mick's going to be able to hold off Akuma in singles and duels?
I do, yeah.
I do.
I would say yes for both.
I would say yes too, probably.
Yeah.
Hunter?
I feel like motivated.
Yeah, I think Mick's gonna be on the warpath.
I think France will probably be a pretty standard World Cup, just with Megève being the way it is. Like, that course flattens out, right? It's just a gun show. I'm very excited to watch duels on Val-Malenko. That's gonna be awesome. Like, I can't wait for that.
And how long is that course?
It's super short.
Yeah, I mean, I think, what did Rowley ski in 17, 18 seconds at a junior
Dude,
world?
Brad skied in 17 seconds in 1 year.
Yeah, that's a guy. I mean, Brad's winning run there from 2013 is
It's ridiculous.
one of the. I mean, he damn near landed on the finish line with back up.
I remember that. Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Like, there's so many guys I want to see duel on that course.
For sure, it's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely be interesting to see how that lays out. I'm interested to see how Cole does. He had that good result in France there in duels. See him kind of bounce back. It was nice to watch him at the Olympics. I thought he skied pretty well. I was kind of interested with some of the scoring there, but I mean, once again, side angle, there were a few of those there that was definitely a little bit interesting. But I think the future's bright. I mean, one of those, we've definitely touched on, but I mean, Nick Page, to me, absolutely showed up and took a significant step. Like, you could see it each run. His confidence seemed to build, and that consistency. And I think that's the best skiing I've probably ever seen Nick do. And I thought he skied great, and I was super, super excited to see that. And I think it really is going to help propel what his future is going to look like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. The way he skied out of the top air was, he had the most composed, most seamless exit from the top air for sure. And I think he's got a bright future ahead for sure if he stays healthy.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, is there anything else we want to kind of touch on here? Anything in the notes that we're thinking of? There's silence.
Do we know if Matt Graham's gonna ski? I know sometimes they don't ski the end of the season. Wondering, how he's feeling after that. Coming back from injury and then also disappointed.
Yeah, that was a tough one for him, huh?
Yeah,
it was a good try, but boy, I don't know, that must be he would have had to have still sucked up quite a bit of pain and discomfort. You got to think coming back from that kind of a break, trying to compete on that. I heard that Australia as a team is going to be there. I know Jordan was talking about Cooper being there, so I think he had been in contact with him. So I think their team is planning on being there this time around. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Hopefully Matt can bounce back. I'd love to see him come back strong and give it another 4 years too. He's great skier, great competitor.
Yeah, for sure.
And same thing with Cooper, you know, as we touched on with Nick. I mean, it was really a coming out party for Cooper. You kind of started to see it in Mount Tremblant when I was there. I was like, man, he's really starting to ski well. You could kind of each run see that confidence start to grow, and then built on that at Deer Valley. I mean, he really started to dial things in there, and then so it'd be exciting to see his future certainly bright as well, and it'd be good to watch. All right, boys. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, getting to chat, do a little wrap up of the Olympics, and kind of give a little preview for World Cup finals there. So thank you guys for taking the time. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you, as always.